private associate fees have now reduced down to 47%.
While staff has shot up this year to 18.29%, I actually think in real terms it's probably higher.
Materials and labs, they're pretty much the same as 23, 24.
So nearly 60% of practices wouldn't fit the mould for a corporate acquisition. Welcome to another look at the second half of our analysis of this year's benchmarking report, which is available for download from the bottom of the screen.
One of the interesting things, or a couple of points, is private associate fees have now reduced down to 47%. And I think the independent market is slightly correcting itself, or there is an adjustment being made. You know, typically the corporates now are recruiting at 45% because their margin and their business operation can no longer sustain bringing associates on at 50%. And I think that's now filtering down more to the independent buyers, and especially for them higher grossing practices where it's a percentage of what, you know, we're starting to see the average surgery doing 300, 350k of revenue, where previously that was a lot lower. So associates can generate more, which means that effectively the practice is able to negotiate better terms.
Yeah, because I guess obviously whilst we're talking about sustainability, is that EBITDA, there was a very, very slight fall. I think it's 0.02 of a percentile. But obviously we've got this fall in associate payout ratio. So the big increase, of course, is staff. Now, I guess what we should again set out here is this data set runs from July to the end of June. So we've only got one quarter within the data set, which is looking at the changes in tax legislation, which means that employers' NI is now 15%. And equally, obviously, the lower threshold on that and the uptick in the national living wage. So while staff has shot up this year to 18.29%, let's be honest, I actually think in real terms it's probably higher because that's only 3 months worth of 12-month data set.
Yeah, and typically now when we're doing valuations, we're seeing that percentage be in the region of 19 or 20%. You know, and
on NHS practices it was, I think it was 19.9%.
Yeah, and that's seemingly the new market norm. Now, going back 3 or 4 years ago, that was 15 to 17%. So we can see how over the years there's been this wage inflation, and also the need to recruit staff has meant that that's increased. But interestingly, materials and labs, which you would have thought, again, if you listen to the news, you know, that they would have exponentially increased, but they're pretty much the same as 23, 24. And what does that tell us? Number one, obviously people have benefited from the DDRB uplifts and an increased UDA value from 24, 25 to 28, but it's seemingly showing that practices are taking on board the advice of accountants and professionals and increasing fees. And historically, it's been an industry of which people haven't necessarily passed these increases on to the patients. Seemingly, you know, practices are doing that now, which is good.
Yeah, and I guess just to sort of close off, the other thing that I think was quite interesting in this report is the proportions within the data set. So first of all, 57.5%, so nearly 60% of practices wouldn't fit the mould for a corporate acquisition. Whereas I would say when we go into most practices, most people start off by saying, you know, do you think I'm attracted to a corporate? Which now means in only 40% of cases, the answer to that is yes. But the more interesting thing is that only 13.8% of this year's data set will be classed as an NHS practice. And by that we mean more than 80% NHS. So is this, you know, are we coming to a point where we have to accept there is no such thing, or we're going to get to a point in a couple of years' time as a fully NHS practice?
I think so, and I think that 18% that are in NHS practice will start to become more popular because people will see the value and the growth potential that hasn't necessarily been capitalised on, which is what everybody wants. You know, in this current market, you need to be able to buy, build, grow for there to be an arbitrage on your effective exit of that business. Whether you're an independent or you're a micro consolidator or you're a group, everybody wants to be able to grow the business to have a future exit of which there's an arbitrage as well as them paying off the loan.
Yeah, and of course, but the other side of that coin is nearly 54% of practices are now less than 20% NHS. So that's more than half of practices now are what we would class as a private dental practice. Again, another trend that's interesting. So, you can download the full benchmarking report by using the link at the bottom of the screen. And if you've got any questions, give us a call.